Hello and welcome to this special edition of MUTV News Tuesday night. Coming up, it's our annual MUSG Election show.
Throughout the evening, we'll bring you live team coverage of this year's election, including one-on-one interviews with candidates and a breakdown of the issues that matter to you. That coming up next on MUTV News. Thanks for joining us on this special edition of MUTV News. I'm Victor Jacobo.
And I'm Ryan Burke. Well, first off tonight, MUSG elections are an important part of the students' voice here on campus. But do you really know what MUSG does? Well, for that we have answers from MUTV's own Max Hess.
Well, every Marquette student has heard of MUSG, but for many, the question still remains. What do they do and what do they stand for? I spoke with our current government president, Joey Ciccone, for the answers. Located in the bottom corner of the Alumni Memorial Union, the MUSG offices aren't all too easy to find. That doesn't mean they should go unnoticed. Student government plays a major role in campus development and actually affects the student body as a whole. Current MUSG president Joey Ciccone says MUSG is far more than a political organization. It's a student voice.
It means whenever there's concerns, issues, any kind of thing going around that students have questions about, it's our duty to kind of make sure that those questions are heard by the administration and that a proper response is then given to the students.
Ciccone added that last year roughly 30% of the student body voted. In numbers, that means about 2,400 students. The vote is important. After all, each student has spent money on MUSG, whether they know it or not.
We do collect $30 from each student, and I think it's very important that we're making sure that we're spending that money appropriately.
Together, that gives MUSG roughly $500,000 to take care of. For an organization with a budget of that size, Ciccone says voting for a qualified candidate is key.
I think it's very important that they possess a few things. I think the first one is a general understanding of what the students' needs here on campus. I think the second one is an understanding of the organization and kind of how it operates, the things that it does, the things that it's doing well. And I think the last one is being able to have the ability to connect with students.
Thanks for that report, Max. MUSG is clearly an important part of the student life. MUSG deals with student concerns, administrative decisions, and organization communication. Here now with a look at the issues is Elizabeth Schilder.
It's a part of every political campaign, the debate. And although no clause came out, both groups of candidates clearly had their own ideas about some of MUSG's biggest issues.
We have a combined 5.5 years experience in this organization. It was my first year at MUSG this year.
It was the veterans versus the new kids on the block. When MUSG newcomers Erica Van Boxtel and Bill Niehart squared off with Drew Hullinan and Stephanie Marecki in MUSG's presidential and vice presidential debate. During the debate, candidates got a chance to introduce themselves and interact with students who were anxious to learn about their plans for Marquette.
I think it's really important to get to know both sides of the debate and see what both candidates are going to be working for.
Issues that topped both candidates' lists include outreach.
My biggest thing is you listen first and then you lead.
And diversity.
Marquette has a diversity problem in its student body. That's very apparent.
Each side stressing inclusivity as the solution, but proposing different ways to get there. Drew and Stephanie focusing on acceptance.
Marquette has to be willing to admit that. If they do not, they're going to get nowhere. When they do, that's how you start changing a culture.
And Erica and Bill focusing on action.
It's not okay to have a president who says we need to continue the discussion. This is the time for action.
Only votes will tell whose plan will win when students head to the polls on Wednesday. Elizabeth Schilder, MUTV News.
Well, thanks, Elizabeth. Well, when MUTV News election coverage returns, you've seen them debate. Now you'll see them in our studio. We've got the candidates in studio coming up next.
Hello and welcome to our continuing coverage of the MUSG elections. I'm joined by Erica Van Boxtel and Bill Niehart, candidates for MUSG President and Vice President. Thank you so much for your time and being here with us. And so we'll jump right into the questions. So we've seen the t-shirts and the hashtag on Twitter. Can you tell us exactly what does hashtag #GotGov mean?
I'll speak to that a little bit. So we put a lot of thought into this, and we really wanted to make sure we had a campaign that kind of represented the approach we take with everything and our leadership. And so we want students to know that MUSG is fun and it's open and that people can come to us as a resource. And so the hashtag #GotGov is really saying, like, you know, do you got Gov? And it's kind of putting that out there for students. And so he can speak to it a little bit more too.
Yeah, it is that takeoff. It's a takeoff that old Got Milk campaign, but it's really we want to show that not only are we going to campaign open and really asking students questions and engaging them, but that's how we would govern as well in student government. We would have a very open, collaborative atmosphere. #GotGov's not going to go away after this campaign.
Yep. Just like, you know, milk builds strong bones, strong leadership builds a strong government. So.
So obviously, MUSG has to deal with a lot of issues. One of those that was highlighted, especially this year, was housing and enrollment. What are your thoughts on that, and how would you take that on in the future?
That's a great question. As a current RA, I see hands-on the housing and how it's affected. And also, I've heard, you know, their plans for it for next year. They've predicted the same enrollment number, which it worries me, and I think that it should worry administration too. That touches every aspect of campus. You know, just academics, housing. Every portion is affected by an influx of students, and so really the one thing that we really want to continue, and it's something MUSG is working on, is pushing the university to really help define that target number and making sure that it is something that's representative and that we have the resources for on campus.
Yeah, seeing students, hearing from students that have been in temporary housing, have had their study space taken away, you know, that's a real issue that affects the student body.
That's the community of the
it affects our community. It affects how MUSG can interact with the student body. So that's something that we really want to seriously address with the administration.
Okay, and I'm not the only one asking questions. Students also have questions, and our first one comes from Jacob, who's the president of UNICEF on campus.
My question is, what are the future plans for your government to help new organizations compete with older organizations, especially getting their names out there, as well as getting funds from your government?
Well, Jacob, I mean, to speak to that a little bit, I think the word compete with older organizations kind of, you know, we would shy away from that. Something we really want to, you know, promote and enhance in the student government is making sure that the new organizations don't feel like they're competing with old organizations, and that they know the resources that are capable of the student government and what they can provide back for them. Do you want to speak to that a little bit with Collegiate Link?
As Executive Vice President next year, I would deal a lot with SOF funding and student groups, and one of the current initiatives that MUSG is taking on, and one that we really want to further continue on and make sure, really see to the end, is something called Collegiate Link, which you could pretty much envision as a Facebook for student groups, student organizations. It's a really central hub where, you know, we can put every piece of information that a group needs to, you know, easily let them organize their own members and also interact with MUSG in an efficient manner. And that really speaks to our whole platform that we are running on, really speaks to the overall theme.
Collegiate Link also gives organizations the capability to have internal listservs for their members, but also external listservs. And it really promotes that, you know, they can put their events right into one location so all students will know what's going on campus. And I think that's huge.
Okay. And now we'll go on to our next question from a sophomore.
How can MUSG make the tuition that we pay for Marquette more transparent to the student body?
So tuition, obviously a hot issue on campus. What do you have to say to that question?
Tuition and transparency, the two favorite words. No, I kind of chuckle when you hear the word transparency. I think that, you know, in all my courses and studies, you know, you say that all the time, but what does transparency really mean? And to us, that means action and knowing where your money has gone. And so we thought about this a lot. While we'd love to lower tuition, we really have to look at it for what we have with the economic times right now. And so one thing we really advocate for is a tuition receipt. And he can explain that.
Tuition receipt. Well, we really, when talking to students throughout this entire campaign, just hundreds of students, every time we always hear tuition. Can I at least know where my money's going? And we kind of agree. I would like to know where my tuition money's going. We put an investment to this campus, to this university. So the tuition receipt, that's really a big part of our platform, is a breakdown of the tuition, where it goes, and where does your tuition money go? How does it improve our campus? The administration handles tuition well, but we need to have a better conversation with students about that, and that's exactly what this does.
students have that information, you can look at it and
Yeah.
then they can ask the questions like, is this where we should be putting our money? And then we can put the student's voice into administration saying, look, this is what the students are actually saying.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll go to our third and final question from the student body.
What is a way that we can diversify our campus so that everyone is more equal?
Diversity is a large portion of our platform and something we're really, really excited about.
Yeah, really poured our heart and soul into this.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of elaborate a little bit. Currently, MUSG has the diversity roundtables, which is discussions with underrepresented groups on campus, just to hear, what their thoughts are and to try to improve that. But right now, they're just discussions.
And they're good discussions. We've been to a couple of them. They identify some solutions, but they don't take those actions. And we have something called the President's Diversity Task Force, which will work directly with Erica and I and Father Pilares and the rest of the university administration to really bring solutions. And whether or not it's a baby step, that's still a step forward. That's still progress. And we need to start acting. And that's one of our really top priorities.
Yeah, the task force would be a group of passionate leaders about diversity and representing groups on campus and really making sure that you're not focusing on the differences, but celebrating the similarities on campus. And I think that speaks to a lot of just the university's mission in general, but also MUSG's mission.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and we're almost about out of time here, but do you guys want to add anything else before we sign off?
I think we just want to reiterate a little bit on the whole aspect and approach we take with things. We really want to make sure that the student government isn't just working for students, but also with. And, we talked about it a lot, and we think that, while it'd be nice to have representatives from every organization on campus, there's 265 and growing on campus. So what really needs to happen is people need to know that we're a resource and that we're there for them and that they should feel welcomed walking in our door. And I think that comes back to the positive kind of fun aspect we want to take with it. The enthusiasm's there, the passion's
talking
there.
to students, really listening to them. Every day we go up to students and we learn something new about what MUSG could do for them. That's the tone, that's the attitude that MUSG should have all the time, not just election season.
Yeah, I completely 100%.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Erica Van Boxel and Bill Neidhart for MUSG President and Vice President.
GOV.
Hello and welcome back to MUTV. I now have the pleasure to be joined by candidates Drew Hallinan and Stephanie Marecki, who are going to talk to me a little bit about their campaign platform. My first question that I want to ask is, you guys have really made diversity a key issue in your campaign. And what I'd like to find out from both of you is, one, what does diversity on campus mean to you? And also, what steps will you take to make Marquette a more diverse place, or at least take steps working towards that?
I can talk to it first. As the first part of the question is, what does a diverse campus look like to us? For me, Marquette has become a home over the past 3 years since I came to college. And I've just always it's been an open environment, it's been a welcoming environment, and it's just an environment that I've thrived in. And something that I want to make sure that there's never a student turned off from Marquette because maybe they can't find other students or associations or organizations that they can associate with. They have some trouble maybe locating a niche group of friends that maybe relate to them on different levels, more than just race, culture, religion, or sexual orientation, but just in a much different way, much deeper level, that Marquette level. So for me, a diverse Marquette is a student body that's comfortable with discussing issues of how do we approach and advocate for more cultural appreciation at Marquette, and really different backgrounds, and how do we make sure everyone's in that conversation and comfortable.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just echo what Drew said. A lot of the times when people talk about diversity, they focus so much on cultural diversity. And a really big thing that Drew and I are pushing is the fact that it's so much more than that. People from different religious backgrounds a lot of times can feel kind of marginalized and really singled out here at a Catholic university. And that's something that we really want to break through and make sure isn't happening here. And then also the LGBTQ community. We've had a lot of issues with that in the past. And Drew and I think that it's really important that groups like that, in addition to cultural diversity, are very important to make sure they're equally represented, that there's this inclusive feeling on campus, and that everyone really is being advocated for in student government.
Yeah, and then you said, so what are some of the steps we'll take to address that?
Correct.
Well, I know currently that we talk a lot about making sure, one of our biggest issues is making sure that the administration continuously advocates for the retention, hiring of more diverse faculty members, again, from a vast breadth of different backgrounds. So making sure they're being honest about that. So far, they are, in the past couple of years, they have made an effort to increase that. And we just want to make sure they continue that and really vamp it up. So really advocate for that. Another big thing too is the Diversity Advocate program that we currently have here. That's a program that it started with great intentions, and it's become less of what it was originally meant to be. And you kind of find this complex with the individuals that are oftentimes the diversity advocates. And what that is there's two kinds of people that want to help students, particularly students that have that trouble finding their niche group or have problems on campus that they would reach out to Diversity Advocate for. You have the individuals who want to help students because it makes them feel good. Like, I'm giving you help, I'm helping you, I'm glad I'm helping you, kind of thing. And that's good, because ultimately they're getting help, but that's not as best it can be. The people that we want to make sure that we're retaining and really looking for are the individuals that will work with the students and really ask them and engage them with their problem and figure out a way that they can solve that problem, but then make sure it doesn't reoccur and make sure it's not a short-term fix, and just really making the student, again, feel comfortable at this university, because that's what it's all about.
It certainly is. Now, my next question, sort of shifting gears, one of the big things that in having the opportunity to speak with your opponents that they really have a large focus on is this tuition receipt idea, that we get a breakdown of everything that we pay for, where our tuition goes. My question for either of you can answer, one, do you think that that's something that Marquette needs, that's important to students? And two, do you think that that's a realistic option for the university?
Right, that's certainly a good question, something that came up a lot in our debates. One of the things with the budget at the school, a lot of the times in the past, MUSG has asked for a breakdown of where money goes. For example, with Sodexo and with Bookmark. We've asked to see, well, where does our money go within this program? Where are you spending our money? And a lot of the times what you get isn't what you picture. You get a breakdown, but it's so broad that it doesn't actually tell you anything. And in the long run, things like that do cost quite a bit of money to produce also. So while I think a lot of students would like to see where their money is going, I don't really think it's such a feasible option, especially from within student government. Well, Drew and I really want to make sure that tuition dollars are being spent appropriately, and that tuition isn't just rising for the sake of getting higher. I don't really think that those goals are attainable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can I follow up?
Sure.
Just one quick thing. Yeah, and like Stephanie's right, we want to make sure that tuition, we understand there's increasing expenses every year. And about that tuition receipt, it is a good idea. It is, but as Stephanie said, it's not something that's going to be as comprehensive as they're really pushing for. I think that they could get a result. I don't think it's what they originally envisioned, as Stephanie alluded to, because we have asked in the past for these kinds of things. And the university is a private institution, and they keep that budget. All that's very private. So you need to understand that we have to respect their privacy, but at the same time, the students do have the right to know about where some of their money is going. So
absolutely. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move on to some questions that we had different students ask. Okay. So our first question is going to come from student Betty Medelson.
Besides the ELP program, what would candidates possibly do as far as getting mentors for other minority students on campus?
Okay, so the big thing is we talked about the Diversity Advocate Program and make sure we revamp that and make sure we get the right administrators. What we need to do is once we get that Diversity Advocate Program really nailed down, I think we should maybe start considering inviting students, making peer groups available for students to kind of go to, peer groups maybe in the counseling center or different advocacy groups that can really work with students. I know the EOP program, one of my fraternity brothers actually is a part of that EOP program, and he's had nothing but great things to say about that. So I know there's the McNair Scholars that can really, that's quite often EOP students that go into that, and that's a great program. So it's making sure you connect students that are getting this great opportunity to come to Marquette with people that, with individuals that can relate to them on every level and really bring them to the next step.
Definitely. Our next question comes from a student, Wiley Yo.
What would you do to improve dorm life and dorm food, more specifically expanding the menu?
Right. Well, this is something I can speak to specifically. I'm the chair of the Student Life Committee currently on MUSG, and earlier this semester we wrote legislation in relation to the influx of students that we've had on campus this year, and really making sure that ORL creates a more strategic plan for admittance next year. In addition to that, we've also produced a survey about the food quality. MUSG was a large part of switching over to this new meal plan, so we have done a survey on, if the quality of food really is better, because that's something that Stuxo promised to us. So we have gauged some student involvement. We're looking at writing some legislation off of that. So really for expanding options, that's certainly something that we have done in the past. We have looked at those expansions in the past and extending hours of the cafeterias and things like that. So it's definitely something we'd look into.
Absolutely. Our next question comes from a student, Cody Thorland.
What can we do here on Marquette University's campus that'll make it more sustainable and better for the environment?
Mike Widow is an individual that I've personally worked with all 3 years, and he really oversees the sustainability effort at Marquette, and he's an administrator in Zilber. And something that we talk a lot about is LEED certification, and this is a special certification granted to buildings that meet certain qualifications, saying that they don't use too much energy. There's a lot of different qualifications that it requires, and it's about the energy and more sustainability efforts. So I know that Engineering Hall, Zilber Hall, a lot of the new buildings are LEED certified, and that's a big push the university is currently having, is this LEED certification. They're doing a little bit of retroactive LEED certification with some of the older buildings on campus, but again, with old wiring and just a lot of the way the systems work, it's hard to do it in every building, but the university has been making a good effort.
Definitely. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I'd like to thank you guys both for coming in and talking to us, and
no
wish
problem.
you best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to MUTV News, continuing coverage of the MUSG election. Well, you know them as politicians, but how about as students? Cassie McAloon is here with more personal side of Erica and Bill. Cassie?
Seen them on their .gov campaign all over campus, but who are the people behind the politics? I caught up with Erica and Bill today to find out.
My favorite, I guess, was actually before I was even a student here. It was I had to fly in to look at the school, and the moment I landed on campus, I just kind of knew it was different. My father and I had kind of been talking about that gut feeling, and I got it. As soon as I stepped onto this campus, I actually got out of a car that we rented by Marquette Hall, and yeah, I just knew.
My favorite Marquette moment, I would have to say, is when I realized I wanted to come to Marquette. And so it goes back to, the tour guide that I had, which I really want to thank. I can't remember her name, but I do remember her walking me around campus and really showing me things. And then learning something about my dad, actually, that he wanted to come to school here, which is really interesting because, he never told me that until I came to campus. And I think he wanted to make sure I made the decision for myself. And then learning that he really wanted to come to school here kind of just really inspired me. And I was like, I can do what my dad couldn't do because they didn't have, that capability for him to go to college.
Well, that's kind of varied semester to semester, I guess. Last year I was at the Liz Aspen Center for 9 months, so that took up a lot of time. Other times I spent campaigning on volunteering on other campaigns, volunteering with other groups, a lot of community service type stuff. But also just taking it all in. I want to make sure that in my 4 years here, I'm really taking the time to enjoy the Marquette experience.
So outside of student government and outside of school, I'm also an RA, and I also work in the Brooks Lounge, and I was a student manager. I'm also helping out with the CAI digital storytelling program and making sure that program is ready for this summer.
I guess that her tenacity, she never runs out of, but I always try to keep up, and that marathon training that she did, that's not just about running with her feet, that's about just running her whole entire life, and it's really inspiring.
I mean, he is so passionate, but he's not aggressive about it. he has, his opinions, but he'll listen first before he's going to say anything. And I think that's really important, and that's why we get along so well. It's just for that reason. We share so many perspectives.
Now that you've had the chance to see the lighter side of Bill and Erica, it's time to get a glimpse of what Drew and Stephanie are like off the campaign trail. The two had some rather humorous stories to share about their childhood and life at Marquette. Let's take a look.
My name is Stephanie Marecki. I'm originally from Farmington, Connecticut, but I live in East Lansing, Michigan now, and I'm a political science and history major.
My name is Drew Holland. I'm a double major in political science and public relations. I'm originally from Duluth, Minnesota, but more recently I now live in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
I know this sounds really cheesy, but my work on O staff has probably been the best thing I've ever done at this campus, and the square dance, not necessarily the square dance itself, but being in a room with 50 other orientation staff volunteers learning how to square dance at 10 o'clock at night when everyone's tired, and it's so much fun.
It really comes down to two. One of them, long story short, my freshman year, the wing I lived on in O'Donnell, we were just a bunch of, we just screwed around all the time, and we stole the O'Donnell Hall trophy for the O'Donnell Olympics, and we managed to get it on the roof. I won't go into the intricacies, but that was a great bonding thing. And then the second one would be the first time I went on a Mardi Gras trip down to New Orleans, and just experiencing that city and just taking in and how emotional it was, and just the time I had down there the first time.
I like that there's always something going on. I live in a very small town in Michigan, albeit it's on a college campus, but when college isn't in session, things are a little bit boring. So I love that there's always something going on here in Milwaukee, and just the pride that the city has for this university.
The rave. It's a funny story. The rave is actually the reason I came to Marquette. I didn't even know we were Catholic University before I came. It was completely serendipitous, and I made the fullest of my Marquette experience around the rave. A funny one that generally people laugh at now, in high school, my attire was very different. Quite often I associated with skinny jeans, tight band shirts, and things of that nature. It's completely changed by this point, but mostly people laugh pretty hard when I kind of talk about my past and how I used to dress.
When I was 6 years old, I attempted to fly by jumping off the roof of my house.
How did that end?
Moral of the story, humans can't fly. Yes.
Looks like she learned her lesson. Well, thanks, Bree. When MUTV News returns, details on how to vote. We'll be right back. MUTV News will be right back.
One of the challenges for MUSG is getting students to vote. Part of that reason is many students don't quite know how to vote. But don't worry, I take you on a step-by-step journey on how you can vote on Election Day. Hey Marquette, Election Day is coming up, and for all you first-time voters, I'm going to show you how to vote for MUSG, RHA, and your senior speaker candidates. So for all you first-time voters, I'm going to show you right here, right now, how to do it. You're going to log in on Election Day using your eMark username and eMark password. All you do is just log in right here, and then it'll bring you up to a page explaining who can vote exactly and what the rules are for casting your vote and any other instructions that you have. So then you go to next, and then it'll bring you up to the candidates for MUSG President and Executive Vice President. The candidates, as you probably know, are Drew and Stephanie, and Erica and Bill Niehart. And so you pick a candidate, whoever is of your choosing. You go to next, and remember, you're not only voting for MUSG President and Executive Vice President, you're also going to be voting for the college senators. So you're going to indicate which college you're from, either arts and sciences, business, communication, education, whichever you may be from. You're going to go to indicate which one you are from. You go to next, and then whoever is the candidates for the senator of your college will come up, and then you indicate who you are voting for. Go to next, And then it brings you up to the RHA election. Now this is going for whether you live in an apartment or residence hall. So if you live in any of these, indicate that you do, and then you go to next. And then you're going to be voting for RHA president, and these are the candidates, and you indicate which one you want. It also brings you up to RHA executive vice president. At the moment, there are no registered candidates. And then finally, for all seniors, you're going to be voting for your senior speaker. So you indicate whether or not you're a senior, and I'll bring you up to a page with who are the candidates for senior speaker at graduation, and you can vote up to 3, no write-ins are permitted. And once you have done your voting, I'll make sure if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, you maybe want to think twice about who you voted for, you can go to previous and think and vote again for changing your votes. And then once you're ready, just go to ready to cast your vote and say, yes, I am ready. And then cast my vote. And you're all done. Voting will be from midnight on Wednesday morning till 10 p.m. So be sure to do that. You'll get an email with your ballot, and be sure to vote, Marquette.
All right, well, thank you, Victor. Now to review, the MUSG presidential and vice presidential candidates are Drew Hallinan and Stephanie Marecki, as well as the other team, Erica Van Boxtel and Bill Neidhart. Now to take a look at our MUSG senator elections. Running for the College of Arts and Sciences, we have Zachary Bauman, Mallory Daly, Jilly Gangandi, Natasha Hansen, Rebecca Osmalski, Ashley Nickel, and Sam Schultz.
In the College of Communication, Allison Kruschke is running unopposed, and so is the candidate for College of Education, Jackie Burriton.
Now the College of Engineering has 3 candidates, Stephen Lino, Thomas McKevitt, and Derek Vanderbush.
In the College of Business Administration, your candidates are Heinz Schillhammer and Tommy Hayes. Finally, for those of you living on campus, there are 2 RHA presidential candidates, Zachary Henderson and Teresa Young Claiborne.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight's special coverage of the MUSG elections. Be sure to go out there and vote tomorrow online. For now, have a great night, Marquette.